Hello. This is Scott Rosano with Gigbuilder.com, and we're currently in the 100 series of Gigbuilder setup. This should be 105, and we're going to do the defaults and options. Now, if you haven't been here yet, or if this is your first video, we get here by going to Tools and System Configuration. We click on that, should take up the same page, and now we'll go to Defaults and Options. This will mostly complete your basic setup. Some of the things in here may not make a whole lot of sense right now to you, so you may want to come back to this video after you've done a little more setup. But I'll do the best I can to explain each of these sections and how they work out. Some of this information was provided if you ran the wizard. For example, a type of deposit. This is something that should be up in your head here, okay? Do you do a fixed amount or do you do a percentage of contract? So if we do a percentage of contract and we say it's 15%, we would simply do this. So that's a percentage of contract, 15%. Some people do a fixed. Well, we'll just go ahead and leave it here and we'll move it down. How do you word it? Some people use deposit, some people use non-refundable deposit, some people use retainer. Whatever you want to put on here will show up in various places in Gigbuilder, especially with your client. Now, invoice numbering. If you do invoicing, and invoicing is built into Gigbuilder, and you can do it a number of different ways, but if you do it the automated way, we can generate invoice numbers for you. Every event has its own unique ID, which works great just for anybody. You also have an incrementing number, which will start at 10050, and the last option is simply a manual entry. Travel charge wording. Again, you can call it whatever you want. We've got typed in as travel fee, but again, you can type in whatever you want, and that's the default, which is showing there. Now we go down to the next section, which is in a lot of defaults. The first one's a theme. This is how your Gigbuilder looks. We have a default blue, a material blue, and a dark theme. And that just kind of changes the way the whole outlook looks. So if you like something really dark, you could switch to that. Or if you like the material that Google uses a lot, that's available as well. Next is your default event type. Now you may have filled these in if you ran the wizard. If you haven't created any event types, this will be blank, and you may want to come back to this. Your overtime rate. How do you do it? In this case here, I do $100 billed hourly. That's the default. Change this whatever you want and however you'd like to. If you go by the half hour or etc., it's all right in there. Automatic contract date. Excuse me. We're going through a lot of interesting things here. What happens here is that when you set a date in Gigbuilder for contract due or whatever else it is, or default days, they're all based upon certain circumstances that happened. So this can automatically insert the date when the event goes to pending. And we'll explain that a little bit later. For the time being, probably leave this alone. Default days for contract, how many days do you give them to sign and return? 14 days is usually a pretty standard, so we've set it there. Same with the balance due. How many days prior to the event is the balance due? So in 7 days, the balance would be due 1 week before the event, but it might be the day of the event. So it's up to you how you like to do that. Your default setup time. Now, how much time in minutes is required for a basic setup? Now, there are other places in Gigbuilder where you can change this, but generally speaking, if you've got pretty much a similar setup you do all the time, it's probably easiest to do here. We do it in another place, and I'm going to show you that instead, so you can set this to none, or if you want to just keep it very simple for all events, set the amount of time necessary for you to set up. Default start event time. That just shows up on forms, so when a person checks their availability, the default start time is going to show something. It can't show nothing, so we have 4 p.m. You can change that. What's your default event duration? 4 hours. You can change that to whatever you'd like. Same with travel time. Now, we do a lot of this with venues, so that when you create a venue, every venue is going to be at a different location, so your travel time is going to be different. But again, if you want to keep it simple, you can do it here. It gets overridden in other places. Same with your setup and breakdown time. And then if you decide to duplicate an event at a different time, how do you want the event status? And we'll explain all these in much more detail. If you don't understand some of these, just keep going and leave the defaults for the time being. Now the next section here, we have a lot of drop-down boxes, and most of these are going to be built automatically as you use Gigbuilder. So I'm going to basically go past all these. I'm just going to give you one that we're going to look at here. And maybe we'll call that employee job roles. So it's job roles, one per line. Might be head DJ. It might be roadie. Whatever you want to be. You can type them here one per line, or you can build it as you're building in Gigbuilder, and we're going to show you that. And then, of course, you can sort these at any time to get them in the right order. Next, down below are some more miscellaneous and global events. Default city and state. This can be different from your office. This is basically where a lot of calculations are going to come from. Do you want to open events in edit mode or not? We'll explain that later. Leave the default. If you're constantly opening an event to make changes, this will save you a little bit of time if you change it to yes. But no basically means when you open an event, all the information's there, but you just have to click a button in order to make any changes. Now, all the different pages that we have, and you're going to see these, what's the default count of them? So, for example, if you want to see all your clients, this is going to come at 25 at a time, 50 at a time, 100 at a time, etc. Link expiration is something else as well. When you send information within Gigbuilder, like a link to a client to log in or whatever, we set the number of days that the link is valid, so that, for example, you give somebody access to go look at something, and they only have a few days or whatever to see it, then the link doesn't work anymore. 1 month is usually good, and you can leave that where it is. Activity log is by employees and admins, so you can see who's doing what. I would leave this alone. Again, these are all advanced things, but we had to go through this menuing system. Basically, what this does is that it combines it so that you have one log for each person for the whole day rather than individual entries. It saves time, and it's just leave it alone. Gigbuilder can do payroll, but payroll figuring. It can't obviously do all the payroll like a payroll system does, taxes, etc., but this does a lot. And so if you decide to use some of this, set how it is that you pay, your period ends, and we'll go through that when we go into all the reporting, which is kind of cool. Now the next thing is your HTML editor widget. There's a lot of places where you can do, and this is a WYSIWYG. It's like your word processor. Defaults to Summer Note, which is basic, and it's good for most people. And we have another one called CK Editor, which is more advanced. You probably want to leave this here until you feel comfortable with it. And then we have a full calendar. And a full calendar I'll explain somewhere else, but you can default it to a few things. So you may want to click just a few items in here. When we do the full calendar, we'll actually come back to this and show you. And so now we get some meeting appointments, task defaults. Again, just like the event, your default appointment meeting, give it a time, 1 hour, that's a default. What's your default type for a meeting? If you're going to do virtual all the time, you may want to set that, but most people just leave it at meeting. And then we have reminders. Now, these are things that Gigbuilder does and allows you to kind of set these defaults so that when you create an event or a appointment or whatever, you don't have to go in and specify every single time, send them an email reminder, send them a text message. So what we do here is the day before the meeting, the admin will receive, and now I'm going to make the client as well. So the admin and the client will both get an email reminding them of the appointment. You can then do a reminder text message. Who are you going to remind? Again, I've got it 2 hours prior. Let's go maybe 4 hours prior. And that also would give them an option to change the meeting. So there's some pretty cool stuff. Now, these other things are called robocalls. And that basically is a voice-activated call. It'll actually call their phone number, and a voice will speak the actual message to them. Katie, you have a meeting tomorrow at Starbucks with Ultimate Entertainment at 2 p.m. Press 1 to confirm or press 2 to reschedule. So we do that with the text message and the robocalls. Most people don't use this, so it's left blank. And then we go to next actions. And again, I'm gonna go over next actions in detail. I would just leave that blank for now. It's just the reminders that something is due or whatever. Again, we'll get that. We can send reminders when the meetings are saved or whatever. We're going to leave this blank. Of all of this, we're going to go into much more detail when we do appointments, and they'll make more sense. Next down is the daily summary email. Do you want to show your appointments in the summary? And you do, just leave that alone. A daily summary email, you've probably already seen a few. It basically says, here's what's going on with your company, and you get it every morning. And you can obviously do a little bit of work in customizing that. After the date passes, so if you have it, say the event is, or the appointment is today, and tomorrow, what do you want it to do? You can auto delete or auto archive if you'd like. Get rid of them, clear them out. And what's the default task type? Just leave that a reminder. Again, we're going to go over these more in detail. If you're a single op or a multi-op, if you're a single op and you've got just you down as the resource, you can just go ahead and select them here. I don't have any resources yet, but it would show that. So basically, when you create an event, it'll default these. So if I'm the only person running my company, I'll set myself as a primary and the backup and the admin or whatever, and then every event I create, it automatically adds me so I don't have to do it. So there's some things to save you some time. There is a lot in here, and we're going to go back into this fairly regularly as we continue through this video series. But until then, when you're done, make sure whether you made changes or not, click Save. Save will record everything inside Gigbuilder and get you ready, take you back to your setup option, and now you're ready for the next video.